Is Hoyan the next RGB SSR banner? Let's go over what we know about her kit and whether you should be saving up for her banner. First things first, it looks pretty certain Hoyan is the next limited SSR right after Freya.
Yeah, that seems almost confirmed. Timing-wise, you're probably looking at around June 14th, give or take. Maybe 4 or 5 a.m. EST, something like that. So really soon.
And the big thing for a lot of people, if you pulled on Freya's banner, your pity count does carry over to Hoyan's. That's always good news.
Definitely. Saves you some pulls if you went deep on Freya.
Yeah.
Now, just a quick heads up. Most of this kit info comes from beta. Things can change slightly, maybe some number tweaks, but the core mechanics, the skeleton of the character usually stays the same between beta and live. So we're pretty confident in the overall design.
Gotcha. So let's get into the specifics. What does she actually do? Skill 1 first.
Okay, skill 1 is Relentless Hunt. Single target, hits twice, each hit doing about 130% damage.
Okay.
And each hit has a small chance, like 25%, to inflict wound for 2 turns. You know, the anti-heal debuff.
130% twice is okay damage-wise, but 25% chance per hit for wound. That feels kind of low, doesn't it? Like unreliable.
It really does. It's probably not something you build around. More of maybe a small bonus if it lands. Honestly, her skill 1 seems a bit, the real interesting stuff is elsewhere.
Right, makes sense. So let's move on to the big one. Skill 3, her ultimate, Execution Right. This sounds like where the action is.
This is definitely key. It's got a unique cost. She consumes 50% of her current HP to use it.
50%, okay.
And in exchange, she deals really high single target damage, 480%.
Whoa, okay, 480% is a big number. Thinking about other single target ults, like Romocha or Messiah, they're around 360%, right?
Exactly. So her base multiplier is significantly higher. But wait, there's more. Defense Ignore.
Ah, always important. How does that work?
Her ultimate ignores 6.5% defense for every 10% of her max HP that she's already lost before using the skill.
Okay, hold on. Consumes current HP, but Ignore is based on max HP already gone. How does that connect? Does spending the 50% current HP count towards the max HP lost for that specific attack's Ignore?
That's the slightly confusing part. The way it seems to work is the HP cost itself doesn't boost the Ignore for that hit. The defense Ignore is calculated based on her state before she hits the button. So if she's already taken a beating and is, say, below 50% max HP before ulting, she'll ignore a lot more defense. The 50% current HP cost enables the big damage number, but the defense shreds scales with how much danger she was already in relative to her max health. Even at full health, there's likely a baseline ignore factored in, possibly related to that initial 50% loss, but the scaling part definitely keys off pre-existing damage.
Okay, got it. So the worse shape she's in before the ult, the harder it hits their defenses. Interesting trade-off. And the cooldown on this?
Pretty quick, actually. Just a 3-turn cooldown for an ultimate that hits this hard and has scaling defense ignore.
That is fast. Okay, now for what sounds like the real core of her identity. Skill 2. The passive. Disillusion. This has multiple parts, and they all sound kind of nuts.
Yeah, this passive it's really something. It's the engine. 3 main things happen here. First, survival. If Hoyen is about to be defeated, takes a hit that would kill her, she doesn't die.
Okay.
Instead, she instantly heals for 60% of her max HP and immediately uses her ultimate execution right on whoever just attacked her.
Wait, what? She gets nearly killed, heals herself, and then automatically counterattacks with her ultimate. Wow. That's not just surviving. That's turning the tables instantly.
It's a huge safety net.
Yeah.
And a serious deterrent. Forces you to think twice about focusing her unless you can burst her down past that threshold and handle the counter ult. This part does have a 4-turn cooldown, though.
Still, that's incredible. Okay, what's the second part of this passive?
Second trigger. When Hoyen defeats an enemy.
Yeah.
If she gets the killing blow, she revives one fallen ally. The HP they come back with is based on how much HP the enemy she just killed had lost. And, as a little bonus, the enemy she killed can't be revived.
She revives an ally just by getting a kill. That alone sounds potentially game-breaking, especially in like Doki or tough PvE stuff where losing a key unit is devastating.
It's potentially massive, yeah. A revive tied to dealing damage is very unusual and adds so much resilience.
Okay, survival counter ult, team revive on kill. There's a third part too.
There is. And this ties it all together and ramps up her damage. Every time either of those passive effects triggers the near-death save or the kill revive, Hoyen gets a stack of a buff called Fleeting Glance.
Fleeting Glance. Okay, what does that do? Sounds ominous.
It's where her damage can go off the charts. Each stack gives her a huge 40% ACK increase.
30%
per stack. And she can get up to 3 stacks. So that's potentially 120% total ATK boost. And here's the kicker. It cannot be dispelled.
An undispellable, stacking 120% ATK buff just for surviving or getting kills. That's insane.
So her passive is survival, it's utility with the revive, and it's a permanent damage steroid all in one.
Pretty much sums it up. It dictates how she plays and how dangerous she can become. It's not just about base stats, it's about triggering these effects.
Speaking of stats, what are we looking at generally?
Generally, reports say high attack, decent defense, but very low HP. Her speed is also on the lower side for an SSR.
Low HP is usually bad for a DPS, makes them fragile.
Oh.
But wait, does that low HP actually help her passive trigger, the about to be defeated part? Exactly. It seems counterintuitive, but her low base HP makes it easier to reach that critical threshold without just getting one shot outright. If she had tons of HP, a big hit might just kill her before the passive could even register she was about to be defeated. So that low HP is kind of a double-edged sword that leans into her kit.
Huh. Clever design. The low speed, though, that's just a straight downside for a damage dealer, usually.
Yeah, that means she'll likely act later in the turn order unless you have ways to speed her up.
Okay, so high potential ATK from stacks. Tricky low HP, low speed. How does she stack up against other well-known single-target or green DPS units, like Romocha?
Well, we mentioned the Ultra multipliers. Hoyan's 480% beats their 360% base. For defense ignore, Messiah has that consistent 70%. Hoyen starts lower, maybe around 32.5% baseline if she's full HP, but scales up the more max HP she's lost.
So Messiah's ignore is more reliable, maybe?
Higher ceiling, yeah, and consistent. But Hoyen has the higher base damage on the ult, plus the potential for that enormous 120% undispellable ATK buff from fleeting glance stacks.
Right, so it's a different kind of threat.
Yeah.
Messiah is consistent shred. Hoyan is high base damage that ramps up massively if her passive gets going.
Exactly. Compared to other green options like Rahu or Romocha, she's doing something very different. Rahu is more AoE and control. Romocha's got strong AoE and splash. Hoyan is pure single-target focus, but with this unique survival, revive, and self-buffing engine built in.
With that kind of package, where do you see her making the biggest impact? Which game modes?
Based on the kit, she looks really, really strong in a few key areas. Doki comes to mind immediately because of that revive.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing back a crucial unit there is just invaluable. She can easily be tier 0 or 0.5 in Doki, maybe even enabling new team comps, like replacing Sonya and some Linglo setups, perhaps.
That Doki revive, it just feels game-changing on paper.
It really does. For general PvE, that revive adds a ton of safety, too, making her a very solid choice. Terra mode. Her high damage and survivability could put her near the top, maybe tier 0.5. Union boss, probably strong. Tier 1 to 0.5 territory.
And the big one.
Yeah.
PvP. Player versus player.
Right. This is where the hype is, and where she could genuinely shake things up. That combination of high burst, the cheat death passive, the stacking ATK, and the revive on kill. It's an incredible toolkit for PvP.
So potentially meta-defining.
Very possibly.
Yeah.
She might be the first truly top-tier S-rank single-target DPS we've seen for PvP. There's serious talk about her landing straight into tier 0 there.
Tier 0. Wow. And you mentioned maybe pairing her with someone like Banton for even more revival shenanigans.
Yeah, imagine that. Hoyan getting revives on kills, Banton doing his thing. You could build some incredibly sticky teams that just refuse to stay down. Could be a real headache to deal with.
Okay, she sounds amazing, but every unit has weaknesses. What are the downsides? What stops her?
Well, like we said, skill 1 is pretty lackluster. That's minor, though. Her focus is single target, so she won't solve your AoE problems alone. You'll need to build the team around that.
Makes sense. But the passive. That engine sounds so strong. Can it be stopped? Is there a counter?
Ah, yes, this is the crucial point. Her entire powerful skill 2 passive, the survival trigger, the revive, the fleeting glance, stacks it. It all hinges on the passive actually being allowed to activate.
Allowed? What stops it?
Debuffs that prevent passives. Specifically, silence or forgetfulness. If Hoyan gets hit with either of those, her passive just doesn't work.
Oh.
No near-death save, no revive on kill, no stacking ATK buffs. She just becomes a unit with a decent ultimate if she can use it, and a weak skill 1. Her whole unique advantage gets switched off.
So characters that reliably inflict silence, or maybe more importantly, forgetfulness, are direct counters.
Absolutely. Someone like Sins, who's known for applying forgetfulness, looks like potentially a very strong counterpick into Hoyan, especially in PvP. Hit her with that, and suddenly she's much, much less scary.
That's vital information. So she's powerful, but not unstoppable. There's clear counterplay if you have the right tools.
Exactly. You have to respect the passive, but you can play around it.
All right, let's wrap this up. Based on this deep dive, overall thoughts on Hoyan, is she the next big thing? Should you be saving up?
She looks very, very good. Potentially insane level in the right places, like PvP. The strengths are obvious, that absolute bonkers passive package with survival, revive, and the huge ATK steroid, plus the high ult damage with defense, ignore. She could definitely shift the meta.
And the weaknesses to keep in mind.
Weak skill 1, single target limitation, the stat drawbacks like low speed, the low HP thing is complicated.
Yeah.
And most importantly, that vulnerability to silence and forgetfulness.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
So maybe not the undisputed #1 unit overall, but bringing something incredibly unique and powerful to the table.
That's how it feels, yeah.
Yeah.
She seems pretty worth it for a lot of players. If you're heavily into PvP, she looks almost like a must-pull, honestly. Her potential impact there seems that high. And if your account is maybe newer, or you're lacking strong green options, especially for Doki, she looks like a fantastic pickup too.
That blend of damage and utility, especially the revive, is just so rare in one kit.
It really is.